Is there any part of you that, no matter how this fight ends, that all that beef would go away, or is it in too deep now and there's always going to be a dislike between you two?
I mean, we could probably squash the beef, but until I beat his ass, I'm not gonna squash anything.
Welcome back to Fighting Words, fight fans. Carlin Gay sitting in for Carissa Maxwell, joined by our senior combat writer, Andreas Hale, and our senior combat editor, Tom Gray. And there are pay-per-views, guys, that people actually want to pay for, and this fight is that. Benavidez versus Plant coming up on March 25th on an incredible card put on, of course, by Showtime. Tom, coming to you first. Who has the advantage heading into the fight?
For me, David Benavidez has the advantage. He is unbeaten at 26-0 with 23 knockouts. He is the pre-fight favourite. He's expected to win. I think he's fully confident, 100% confident that he is going to win. He's kind of like the super middleweight bogeyman, if you will. So I think he'll be looking through Caleb Plant and expect victory. In the ring, I give all advantages to David Benavidez.
Tom, I disagree with you on one aspect, and that's the psychological warfare. Caleb Plant bought the domain name davidbenavidez.com and decided to sell merchandise off of it. And he said he made about $50,000 in merch off of that man's name. And David Benavidez is pissed off. He's riled up. He's threatened him to fight him at press conferences. So I think Caleb Plant is winning the psychological warfare by getting David Benavidez out of his skin. Whether that'll translate on fight night, I don't know. But I think psychological is, say the fight mental is more than half the battle. So I'm going to give the edge to Plant.
We'll see how much merchandise he can sell when the bell rings, though.
Well, yeah, you're probably right about that. I don't know what happens after that.
I'm sure both of them just want to sell pay-per-views at the end of the day, and it's all about the fight inside the ring. So, Andreas, I'm going to ask you, what's the biggest factor in the squared circle?
Well, it's David Benavidez's pressure versus Caleb Plant's boxing ability and technical savvy. Benavidez is like an avalanche. It starts off, like a little snowball, and as it gains momentum, it gets bigger and it overwhelms people. And that's what Benavidez does. He throws punches and bunches. He's a big kid. You got to remember this. He was a little fat kid sparring with the likes of Gennady Golovkin and giving them hell. So when he looks at somebody like Caleb Plant, it's not the same. It looks like he wants to wear him down. Caleb Plant has to fight the perfect fight. Can he? He could, but can he stay away from David Benavidez for 12 rounds and that pressure and that power and the combination punches? There's a lot for Caleb Plant to deal with, and he's got to stay with it for 12 long rounds. Plant has to be perfect. Benavidez, not so much.
Yes, I think ultimately Andreas has just nailed it in microcosm there. David Benavidez is going to pile on the pressure, and it's a question of can Caleb Plant cope with that through 12 rounds. And if you go back to the Canelo fight, Canelo's pressure comes via his presence, his foot positioning, and he's still ground Plant down to a walk before that fight was over, and that's ultimately why he was able to knock him out. He slowed him down enough to get the big shot in. Benavidez is going to put on even more pressure than Canelo. It won't be as educated, but he's going to feel that suffocating presence. I do think that Caleb Plant will bank rounds. I think he will be ahead by the midway point. But when he slows down, Benavidez is the wrong guy to be in there with. And I think Benavidez would come on to perhaps take the fight by late stoppage. I just worry, because of the way Plant boxes, he's a fluid, mobile boxer that uses the ring. That style, not only, you basically are draining yourself by fighting in that manner. You're constantly working hard. And when someone's hitting you on top of that, your engine tends to run out. I just think you might run out of gas and get stopped late.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the fight actually plays out on the 25th. But it's a big fight for both of these gentlemen. Obviously, they are hoping for another big payday coming up. But Andreas, who needs to win this fight more?
That's a damn good question, Carla. I mean, Caleb can't afford to lose. People that have lost to Canelo, usually when they lose to a big name like a Canelo or a Floyd Mayweather, if they lose another fight after that, their career is kind of done in terms of being a star. But I would have to give it to David Benavidez because he wants the Canelo fight. And he's calling himself the Mexican Monster. I talked to him recently. He says he wants to take over Cinco de Mayo and Mexican Independence Day. In order to do that, you have to beat Caleb Plant to set yourself up for a possible Canelo fight. So he needs it more in that sense. But if Caleb Plant wants to continue his career, he's got to win. I don't know if I answered the damn question. I gave you that both of them need it, but right now I think I'll just say Benavidez because there's a bigger upside to David Benavidez winning this fight.
I'm glad he got off the fence, Tom. You go ahead.
Yeah, it's close, to be honest, and for different reasons. Benavidez is 26 years old. The only thing is, to take a loss, he's been this bogeyman of the division for the last couple of years. A loss to Caleb Plant, who has lost to Canelo, derails him so badly, changes his whole reputation. I think he would still get another world title shot because he's got youth on his side. And maybe when Canelo moves away from the division and all these belts become free, he's in the mix. But, winning a world title and doing it against the best are two completely different things. His reputation would take an enormous hit. I think Benavidez, a loss for him, hurts more. I think they would still repackage Caleb Plant. I think Plant has reached his ceiling. We'll see come Saturday night.
You just said maybe Canelo relinquishes the belts and he moves on. He still has them right now, and we've already seen Caleb Plant get his shot at Canelo Alvarez. Should, and all due respect to Caleb, should David Benavidez get past Caleb Plant on March 25th, do we get to see a Caleb Plant, David Benavidez, Canelo Alvarez fight, and who wins? Tom.
I've always liked Canelo in that fight because if you look at Canelo, who he has lost to or who he's had severe trouble with, it's usually the boxer mover. Plant, I actually gave Plant some credit when he fought Canelo. I had him winning more rounds than most. But if you put a target in with Canelo, then history tells us that he will bash that target and bash it severely. And I don't think that Benavidez, as much as he's a great puncher, he's got 23 knockouts in 26 fights, I don't think he can put a hole in Canelo. So I'd like Canelo in that fight. Plus, when I look at the two resumes, both guys, the difference in competition faced is so vast. Now, just because you've not operated at a certain level doesn't mean you can't operate once you get there. But I think Canelo has got such an advantage in experience, and I think David Benavidez's style suits Canelo down to the ground. I think Canelo would beat him on points.
Whew. I'll pick a David Benavidez. The hell what you say, Tom. Here's why. Canelo doesn't throw a lot of punches in his fights. Against Dimitri Bivol, he didn't throw a lot of punches. He's very economical. David Benavidez throws caution to the wind when attacking. David Benavidez is huge, standing at 6'1". He gains a lot of weight on the night of fights. His pressure is different. Canelo, he dealt with it with Gennady Golovkin, but then he dealt with it in Dimitri Bivol, and it shows that if he can't hurt you, and David Benavidez has been sparring with some big, big punchers, David Benavidez will walk you down. And I think the activity would give Canelo a huge problem. I don't know necessarily what's going on with Canelo. If you look at the Bivol fight, again, he didn't throw a lot of punches. Even against Golovkin, although he won, he beat a 40-year-old man who still was kind of in that fight. Benavidez is 26. Benavidez, I would argue, is hungrier. I would say that because he wants so much more and he believes in himself. And look, he's a two-time WBC champion. He's undefeated because he lost the title once for cocaine and the second time on a scale. So the man believes in himself, but he has to just get his mind right. But I think if that fight were to happen, I give Benavidez this very slight edge. The real question is, does Canelo want to fight Benavidez at 68? Or will Canelo stay and try to be a light heavyweight when title's there? I don't know if Canelo wants to fight David Benavidez.
First of all, in terms of Bivol and Benavidez, it's chalk and cheese stylistically there. I mean, essentially, Bivol, the game plan that he put forth was to outbox Canelo, use his hands, speed, and move away. Benavidez comes in, and as much as he throws a lot of punches, the more punches you throw, the more gaps you leave. And I think ultimately that's what would prove costly. It'll be interesting to see if Benavidez wants to, if this fight happens and we're in fantasy land here, if Benavidez wants to let his hands go against Canelo when he's getting struck back on the counter. You know, Canelo's got a way of shutting opponents down that are overly aggressive. So that was my take.
Yeah, well,
right.
You know,
Quick,
wait, hold
quick
on.
one. We'll get a chance to analyze that fight should it happen. But Benavidez does have an opportunity to get a big payday with a win against Caleb Plant, and you guys have already kind of given me your prediction, in this fight. I feel like I'm going to answer this for you. You guys are both picking Benavidez to beat Plant, but tell me how he gets it done, Andreas.
Oh, David Benavidez is going to stop him late. I mean, listen, I think Caleb's going to have a great few rounds, but if anybody remembers, and we'll take the hand plaster accusations out of this, Miguel Cotto and Antonio Margarito's first fight played out very similar to what I think is going to be with Plant and Benavidez. Cotto started fast. Margarita was wearing him down. He was losing, but that punishment began to pile up, and Cotto couldn't take it in any of those championship rounds. It just was broken down and broken apart. I think we're going to see a very similar fight. Not only similar in styles, but in stature as well. Margarita was a towering, rangy Mexican fighter who just continued to come forward. Cotto was very stylistically, he liked to move off the ropes, jab, try to get away, but eventually that catches up to you. Same thing plays out here. I think Benavidez stops Caleb Plant late in what is a very exciting fight, but that punishment is going to get very brutal, and it might be a corner stoppage.
Yeah, ultimately the problem here for Plant is I just don't believe that he can hurt Benavidez. Yes, we saw the highlight reel knockout against Anthony Dirrell, terrific left hook, but Anthony Dirrell is 38 years old. Benavidez is 26 years old, super durable, prime of his life. I think Andreas, I hate to agree with him, is absolutely spot on here. I think that Benavidez is going to have to come from behind. I truly believe that. I think Plant's style will give him fits early, but ultimately when he slows down, I think Benavidez shuts the gap, punishes him heavily, and scores a knockout in the championship rounds.
Well, the betting odds agree with both of you guys via BetMGM. Big favorite for David Benavidez in this fight, and it doesn't seem like this fight is going to go to distance according to Vegas. While you're on the channel, check out Andreas' interview with David Benavidez, and like and subscribe right here to Sporting News. For Andreas Hale, for Tom Gray, I'm Carlin Gay. Don't worry, YouTube commenters. Carissa will be back next week. This has been Fighting Words.